Alright, let's just go over my list real quick. We got Wedge, Server Motors, R3, Protons, Swarm Tactics, Shield Upgrade. We got Horton with R3, Protons, Shield Upgrade, and Swarm Tactics, as well as some Seismic Charges. Then Dutch, Protons, R4, Shield Upgrade, Expert Handling, and Seismic Charges.
Comes out to
$199. Let's see, we got Onyx Squadron Ace with Juke, Onyx Squadron Ace with Juke, and Del Miko with Juke. And what does that come out to?
$199.
$199. So we're gonna have a roll off.
Hello and welcome to another Casual X-Wing match on the Godhound channel. Today we have Colin versus John. I'm Gordon. Shameless plug time. I am the host of the Stay on Target podcast, but enough about me. It's okay to laugh, you guys. You know, it's all right. All right. So even though Colin went over what the lists were as far as his Rebel, Dutch, Wedge, and who's the other? Horton. He's scoring off against two Onyx and Del Miko. The bids came out to $198 on the Imperial side to $199 on the Rebel. So John decided to pass initiative. The premise is the Imperial list is going to be all about taking an evade action to leverage the juke on all three ships. Whereas Colin's list very much is based on an alpha strike at initiative 6 because of swarm tactics on two of the ships, where he can trigger his ordnance. Proton torps, right? Yeah. He hopefully has an answer for John in that if John does a traditional lineup and then K-turn, he may have to think twice about it because there could be bombs that John will run into. It just depends on where the engagement is. Are they protons or are they seismics, John? The bombs. Or I keep wanting to call Colin John. Colin, are they protons or? They're seismics. So for that to work, he's got to leverage them near the rocks. So the pressure's on John not to be around a rock when those go off. So for the purpose of this match, they're protons?
Yes.
Okay.
My bad on the mistake. I just saw the seismic grab them.
So you may want to, during post-edit,
Yes.
do either a text clue in the channel or an audio clue you'll insert later, which you are running with. All right. So they're not necessarily the most aciest of ships, but John is still going to want to take advantage of the fact that he does move afterwards and leverage some kind of repositioning. So he's going to race out. Del Mico, Colin asks, what is Del Mico's power? Del Mico has the ability to allow for re-rolls if being attacked by a ship that has damage. So while the shields are up, Del Mico's not so much, and this is for like all his buddies, right? It's not just himself.
Range 0 to 2.
Right. So if he is close enough to the defenders, while the defenders being attacked, they do get one of their dice to re-roll if there happens to be some kind of damage on those ships. So the Y-Wings come with what? An extra shield, so they're carrying 3 shields?
Yes.
And Wegs is, and same with Wedge. So it's almost as if that was kind of countering a little bit. You guys came up with these lists independent, right? Right. So basically when Colin said he came up with it independently, no, he glanced at John while John was building the list and then intentionally put extra shields onto his ships. Because Colin is a dirty, dirty cheater.
No.
What?
This is okay.
You asked me to make commentary. I'm making commentary.
Okay.
All right, so dials are set for round 2. So the burden is going to be on Colin to be able to leverage, most importantly, the ability to get a target lock on his attacks to be able to launch his protons. Because of the action efficiency, he should also be able to get focuses as well, something that he may need when John shoots back with juke-enabled ships. But when you get right down to it, they're only defending with just 1 dice. So how important having that focus for defense, probably be better spent having it as a mod for a proton shot. So we can already see John putting pressure on Colin by racing in and trying to get a shot in before those locks and protons can come back on him. The nice thing about the defenders there is if they can always leverage at least speed 3, they're going to get the free evade action, which then synergizes nicely with their juke elite talent. Okay. All right, so S-foils are open into attack. 1 forward to victory, as a rebel typically does, and there should be no problem taking the lock on that lead ship.
Okay, so to start, I'm going to go ahead and swarm tactics.
Alright.
Swarm tactics him to become a 6. No, I didn't. That's not what I said. I said we'll swarm tactics him to be a 6. He'll swarm tactics him.
Now that's the trick. He's swarm tactics Horton, right?
Yes, and then Horton will use his swarm tactics.
And then swarm tactics will then pass along down to Dutch. Now here's the trick. Who does he pick to shoot first, and does Horton even get a shot?
Let's find out first.
So he commits to Horton first, and Horton is out of range.
Dutch will go next.
Now Dutch is a sad Dutch because Dutch wasn't able to take a target lock this turn.
Correct.
And no amount of shenanigans was going to help him get one.
Just 2 dice from the gun.
So just 2 dice at range 3. Results are blank.
Yep. Now we're going to go with Wedge. He's going to launch his first set of torpedoes.
Okay, so now we're on to Wedge. He shoots the first
And 1 less because
set of his torpedoes.
and then the ordnance doesn't get you at 1.
Yeah. 2.
Okay, 2.
So Wedge reduces the defense dice used by the defender, even at range 3. So now we drop him down to 2 dice. There is an insane max roll by Wedge here for 2 crits and 2 hits.
That's all for me.
You can change the hit to a crit with proton.
These are protons, right? So that could become 3 crits. All right. All right. So he gets to leave the target lock. Only 2 defense there. No brainer. He spends his focus for block 2. So 2 shields are now down on the defender. And that is it for Colin. And now return fire by John. So John decides to go with the closest defender. He shoots back at Wedge.
1 hit.
1 hit. Nothing in return, no need to juke. So 1 shield off of Wedge, and now the second Onyx further out is checking for range. Barely gets it to Wedge, might as well do sustained fire on the same target. Spends it for 2. This is where he does juke one of them, but because Colin sacrificed some farm animal before the match, he was able to roll natties, and it didn't matter. And so now we reset, and we are back to dials. All right, so here we are at the start of round 3, and basically we're going to have kind of a contrast in styles and approach. Rebels here desperately want to 1 forward here in the hopes of setting up a target lock on something, which is opposed to what. Not only is it in the interest of the Imperials to go fast as possible and not be within the torpedo range, but they also get the benefit of that free evade action if they're able to at least go speed 3 or higher. So the pressure, in a sense, is on Colin to find a way to get meaningful locks on a viable target. So Dutch goes first, generates a lock, which then allows him to get a lock on a buddy, and is that within range? I couldn't tell.
It was just in range, yeah.
It was?
Okay.
Then Wedge, he'll maintain a lock on him, but he'll also have a lock on his
All right.
So that's
So Dutch doing his thing and handing out target locks. Horton also 1 forwards to victory. So the chances are, if he's locking, he's only got 1 choice here. That other Onyx is too far away, the red one. So instead, he only focuses. What did John do? All right, John committed to going to 3 speed forward instead of a K turn, which was probably wise because knowing that the Rebels were going to go 1 forward anyway, the K turn was going to be blocked. So he's just going to YOLO here, get to within range 1. If he's lucky, he's blocked Wedge. Red defender here also going 3. We'll be getting the free evade action. And then he's got a decision on his actions, which is going to be pretty much either focus or barrel roll or a lock himself. Right now, the trick is to eyeball the distance there, and does that look like that's within range 1? And so the thinking is, well, it's just a 3 dice primary. He's got to figure out what his target priority is and how much he wants to either reposition or how much he wants to mod. And then is that mod based for defensive purposes, which is what a focus would represent, as opposed to maximizing some damage perhaps by taking a lock on one of the ships in front of him. He's probably going the defensive route by taking focus. That seems to be a true adage that was just as true when this game first came out as it is now, which is when in doubt, take a focus. Delmico, who is very squishy and is basically a cheerleader for the other 2, doesn't want to get shot by anything, so if he can flank to trigger some re-roll abilities for those defenders, the longer he's on the board, the easier it's going to be for his defending buddies. Colin kind of called it, knowing that those ships were going to race forward and set up a K turn because he got the mod for free from Dutch. Although he is at range 1 of the red defender.
We're at the start of engagement. I don't think I'm in range 1 to set him as initiative 1 for now. So I will start. I'll just do a
So you're checking range 1 for what?
swarm tactic.
The swarm tactics.
Yeah, and I'm not at range 2 of done.
Okay, so instead of all of the ships shooting ahead, but you have initiative as it is, so you're still going before. But for the sake of following the rules.
Yeah. So I'm going to fire at.
So Wedge, range 1 into the blue defender. He gets 1 less dice. And he rolls hit, hit, crit, and a blank. He does have a lock. And
Spin it first, right?
yes, before he rolls. So he spends the lock, gets a focus, does nothing. And we have blank, blank again on the defender, and that should be the last of the shields. So if we were keeping track of points, at this point Colin is ahead with half the value of those defenders, and those defenders are expensive ships. They're in the 80s.
Yeah, damage sensor array. Can't do actions, set focus actions on the card.
All right, so if you didn't hear that, he got a damage sensor array, which is no actions except that which is on the card, and that is what? Either a focus or repair?
Yep.
Yep.
You stick with my force, right?
Yep, yeah, your
Does that mean if you were to do a speed 3 maneuver, you do not get a free evade action until that is repaired?
Correct.
Okay, so that is a horrible crit for a defender. They do not like that. There's going to be at least one turn where he is not getting an evade if, let's say, he does the most likely going to be doing a K turn on the next turn. I'm assuming he even survives this round.
So I can reroll 2 because I can reroll 1 attack die for each other friendly ship at range.
So Horton is triggering his abilities, which are rerolls based on proximity of friendly ships. Pretty good roll there into 3. At least the defender is back up to 3 dice.
Had a evade token earlier.
No, oh yeah, you could have. On the first turn you couldn't have. Well, missed action here, but now you can spend the evade token to at least now only take 1 hit here.
So now you're alive with 1.
Our casual knights are brutal, not non-forgiving affairs. No, sir, 10 seconds has passed. That opportunity is missed. Sorry, I need to really get rid of this ship. Thanks, Colin.
Dutch is going to try to finish him off.
Dutch, with a brutal, brutal range 1 primary attack out of it, going to become 3 dice. He does have a lock. Does he spend the lock?
No, because I think I'm locked onto the...
Oh, are you locked onto the red? So, not a bad roll nonetheless. But Colin rolls slightly above average and gets to live. Chances are he was going to live anyway, even with an average roll, because it would have been an evade, it would have been a focus and a blank, and then he could have spent the focus to have blocked that second hit.
This one's shooting at Dutch.
All right, so now he gets to return the favor, saying this is what you get for not killing me. Here comes 4 dice into Dutch's face. Very good roll, hit, hit, crit. All right, kind of a lucky defensive roll to only lose 2 shields there. 1 more shield and we're starting to, no, 2 more damage and then we can trigger Del Mico.
This one's shooting at Wedge.
At Wedge, okay.
And an amazing roll into Wedge. Of course, Wedge blanks out and not only loses both shields, but will take 2 damage. And now all shots will allow a reroll of 1 of the defense dice as long as Del Mico can get within range of his buddies. All right, is that the end of the round?
Okay.
So here we are at the start of round 4, and what will be interesting is whether or not Colin does drop a bomb. How much health is left on that defender? 1? The defender probably knows that, so does Colin risk it and drop the bomb anyway? Now remember, these are...
The window you die is a
Yeah,
system.
use system first, right?
Would I drop my bombs for all my ships then?
Yes.
Okay.
So these are not seismics, as we incorrectly stated earlier. These are protons, so you got to be within range 1 of that bomb.
So that guy, Horton's not going to do it.
Horton's going to not waste a bomb.
No. We're just gonna.
In theory, it's a waste. That he may be full of regret as he watches John try to fly off the board to the right. All right. So there we are, still 1-forwarding to victory out of Dutch. Dutch already has 2 locks on the red. What will his action be? So he's once again going to take a lock action.
We'll grab a lock onto.
So he's locks Del Mico. Which number will he switch over?
Actually, yeah.
Will he?
Doesn't have the astromech, so he can only lock 1. So he's gonna lock. Mico.
So he switches 4. He keeps. You're still. That other lock is that 6 there. Is that wedges or that's wedges? Okay.
But he's gonna pass the lock power to.
And what is the range distance to be able to pass it? 1 to 3. That is easily done. So now Horton
Lock onto both of these.
locks onto the 2 ships he can.
Yes.
All right. You get a lock, and you get a lock, and you get a lock. Colin is doing his best Oprah Winfrey impersonation. Courtesy laugh out of Colin, even though it wasn't really funny. He then also won banks. Will it fit? Probably. Okay. He's then allowed an action. Chances are, if you don't know what to do, you take a focus because there are juking ships in combat here. Always a good idea. That's kind of the whole point. Dutch gives the locks, leaves his buddies to take focuses.
Forgot those weren't seismics, and I forgot all your ships go first.
All right. So in our cutthroat, out for blood casual league, we are going to lose a defender, because that's going to be within range 1 of a proton, and he's going to eat a crit. Who may even lose a shield because it may be close enough to that bomb. Which now just causes a bumping thing. Instead of doing a K turn like God intended, John decides to get cute and only do 2 forward. Now maybe he's able to block wedge and a 1 forward, which is fine. And Del Mico's probably doing, a hard 2. You'd think it'd be a hard 3. That's cutting it close.
I forgot it was a seismic. Am I in that?
So he intentionally did the 2 to stay away from the rock going off. He didn't want to risk the seismic charge up there. Thinking it was a seismic, but instead it's a proton. All right. He did land on the debris, but he didn't take any damage, but he is stressed, and so no action. So all we have now, after Colin is done adjusting the camera, is to move wedge. Let's see if wedge got caught going 1 forward. So it's a bump. Stress is cleared. Oh, 1 bank. Ouch for wedge. Red's going to say hello, making John look like a genius and me an idiot. Does it fit? Oh, that would have been fantastic. Instead, by a fraction, wedge gets bumped. All right, so no action. We now detonate. So each of these ships take a crit. That'll be a shield on Horton. And unfortunately, there goes the blue onyx. The crit was a loose stabilizer.
I'm going to do the pass off.
All right, so wedge doesn't have a target, but he does get to trigger swarm tactic shenanigans, which then daisy changed into more swarm tactic shenanigans. Not that it matters, because they were both initiative 4 with first player on Colin. So both of those ships will be shooting at Del Mico.
He does not have a lock, so he's just going to use his guns.
So 2 dice of unmodded power at range 2 from Horton.
I'll go ahead and spend it.
He spends it for 2. And of course, because why, it's probably my bad because I'm standing so close to John, and therefore I have infected and cursed John with how I roll dice when I roll green dice. He whiffed. And from this angle, I would have sworn Dutch had a shot, but as we can see here, he is out of arc and there is no shot. So if the camera showed it, looked like he had a shot. He doesn't. So the only shot left now is Delmico to return the favor at range 1. 3 dice unmodded into Dutch. And of course nothing, which is also probably my fault for standing so close to John. And now we're resetting dials and going into what, round 5? Okay, so the obvious thing position-wise here, the concerns are going to be, you'd think a defender would want to K-turn, but then that means he's K-turning right into a bomb. But if he wants to be able to get a focus and an evade, he probably needs to do that unless he's just going to bug out and do a 3-speed to the hard right or left. However, if he K-turns, there's also a good chance he's going to say hello to Wedge at range 1, which isn't good. Colin, not caring, is just double dropping the protons.
We're just going to go for both of them.
Yeah, both of these represent proton bombs. In the system phase, and now the Y-wings need to move. Which does he move first?
I don't like it because I want to get the action economy, but...
Yeah, sometimes you just have to set up the repositioning and reset up the attack runs and get action economy on the follow-up moves. So he K-turns and is stressed.
He's going to do the same.
Horton's doing the same. You could probably just... No, you don't need to mark. You could, here, because it's straight, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you just do it on... There you go. All right. Nice. Only an option available to straight maneuvers where you do it on the outside instead of within. You can't do that, obviously, with the curved. Yes, you did it correct. All right. So double stressed Y-wings. And now, what did John decide to do? John didn't care is what John thought. Now, to be, in the sense, he is behind, he's lost the ship, and he does have a fully healthy defender, so if there's ever a time to weather the damage, this would be it. Of course, he did an illegal action by taking 2 focus instead of a focus and an evade. Here, our casual X-Wing rules mean he loses a digit as a penalty, but because this is a family-friendly show, we are going to actually edit out the footage of the finger being cut and the blood. That will be CGI'd out later.
All right.
All right. So here goes Wedge. Wedge closes the S-foils. Interesting. He knew the bombs were going to be there, so he wants the ability to boost away as opposed to get in the face of that ship. Makes sense given how Wedge is down to, what, 1 hull? 1 hull, right? Gets out of arc, probably out of range of the proton bomb, which goes off. It does hit Delmico, which is not good because crits finish Delmico, and there goes the defensive ability. And the first shield is gone on the remaining defender.
Okay, so let's check for shots. Doesn't look like they've been shooting this turn.
So too far out, reset. So to summarize the match up to this point, you sort of basically have one very much a jousting list that loves to do that in Colin's Rebel fleet here. And you sort of have a list that 2/3 of it wants to do the same thing, it's just that it ran into a list that does a better job of it. John doesn't really have super hyper repositioning ships other than that of a barrel roll, but at least he is able to move afterwards, but not enough to be able to avoid the forward-facing firepower of this Rebel list. Now, curiously enough, it wasn't the protons that did the work in this list. It was the bombs, which proved to be a very hard counter against the list that wants to K-turn.
You good to go?
Sure.
Or you lose 2 points and gain a power change.
So that's Dutch.
So enjoy that.
All right.
This is Horton. This is
Well, they're both PS or Initiative 4, so it doesn't really matter. All right. As always, 1-4 to victory. He's going to focus. How fast can the Y-wing go, and will it be far enough to be able to get the lock? Probably not. So at least for this turn, you're not going to see overwhelming dice mods for the Rebels.
Boost. Oh, and I did get that a bit.
I'm gonna open my wings.
I see a Talon roll.
Yes.
All right. Anticipating that, Wedge Talon rolls.
Middle, front, or back? Back. So like here or not that weird.
Closest. Yeah. There you go.
So, Wedge is stressed, but he still reduces the shot. It's just whether it's at range 2 or 3.
Or obstructed.
It is probably obstructed. It's definitely range 2, but it is obstructed, so it still amounts to 3 dice. Advantage John here, definitely, when Colin rolls like that.
I think that's all the shooting for this turn too.
Yep, and we reset.
Is that actually called trolls?
This is probably gonna be a bump.
Well, that might fit.
He does.
Whoa.
He will take a focus.
Colin, assuming he was going to bump, was surprised at the focus action he's able to take.
Now, if you
Went.
bump, could you take a free action from Dutch?
Yeah, and it just doesn't apply a target on it, so
Yeah.
you'll be able to.
Yeah.
What he's gonna do?
So we know Dutch is setting up target lock shenanigans to pass it on to his buddy there.
Yeah, he's gonna get. Oh, they do.
You,
Yes, he'll be the
but you said it. You just take the lock again,
Yeah.
so that you can then set up.
What number is Dutch? 3. Yes, he gets 1. So he'll lock, and then I'll just switch.
Yeah,
it
can
out.
you get a second lock on the same ship?
Not on the same one. Each lock must be on a different target.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what he'll be doing. So he'll grab that.
Big surprise.
Yes, big shock. It's about all this guy has left. He does get full mods, and he does get to shoot. Chances are I can't see it, but it's probably a 1 bank to the left. It is. Probably clears the rock. It does. And then he takes. He's already got a lock from before, so he's focusing. Not looking good for the defender here. Chances are he's eating 2 different sets of protons.
Okay, let's check for, you don't get swarm tactics.
No swarm tactics, but again, that's just more perfunctory as far as dictating the order in which the ships have to shoot.
Wedge is gonna burn his last set of protons.
All right, second set of protons being used by Wedge, fully modded.
He'll spend his focus.
And then one of those is a crit. That could not have gone worse for John.
Block 1.
So the remaining 3 shields are gone.
Alright, let's see. I think both my guys have shield.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll launch Horton's torpedoes since he has a focus.
Yeah.
All right. Horton launching his torpedoes, his last set. Oh, is this the first time he's used it? I'm sorry, that was under that was under the mat there. I couldn't see when you moved it. All right. All right. Spends his lock, gets paint, and that's double crits. This could do it if the roll. So that's 2 crits. If a direct hit is one of them, that's game.
Feel weak.
So now a crit, it was a crit anyway. And the fuel leak, and yes, chain boom, 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 and that's game.